pas, les nerfs
Hey guys, it's Jessi, and today I did my hair and makeup, so I decided I could not get away with not doing a video today. I'm approaching finals, and I figured, like, now was the time to sort of, like, make a video about, like, what sophomore year of college is like. I didn't necessarily do that for my freshman year. I kind of just made, like, tips for, like, what your freshman year might be like. But every year is different. They're all pretty much vastly different. So for me, this year was the first year that I lived off campus. I live about 15 to 20 minutes away from the Cathedral of Learning, which is basically all of campus. Which, if I lived at, like, the University of Maryland, that would be, like, a pretty good commute. Like, that's close. But here, it's not close. It's actually pretty far. And so next year, I'm actually moving closer. And living off campus presented a whole bunch of challenges, as did sort of getting more into my major offered a lot of challenges as well. And so this is just sort of like, what did I learn from this experience, and like what I'm going to be doing moving forwards, and maybe this will help sort of be some advice for anyone watching. So the biggest thing is, like, food. Food was, and still is, like, a big problem for me. Not in, like, oh, like, I don't eat enough or whatever. No, like, I eat a perfectly fine amount. But planning food is, like, very difficult. I succeeded pretty well first semester last year. I made a whole bunch of, like, pasta in the evening that I would just, like, eat the next day. I would come home, I would make food, and then I would go to rehearsal. Yeah. And this semester, I sort of, like, really struggled with that, and it just did not work. I bought dining dollars that I could purchase food from, like, the school cafes and whatever, and I ran through that like nobody's business. So, I mean, I highly recommend having, like, that money that you can use on campus, and also making your own meals. So for me, what would have worked best would have been packing a lunch the night before and then eating on campus for dinner, because I usually did not have enough time or energy to come back and then go back to campus. So that would have worked better for me had I been able to sort of get it together. But another big factor in that for me this semester was sort of my depression was a lot worse, which is weird because I was medicated, but instead of, like, crying and, like, skipping a class and getting stuff done, it was more like there was no energy left in me to sort of do anything, which is probably a bigger struggle because, I mean, each is their own struggle, but this for me was a little bit more difficult because I have to get stuff done, and I just could not do it. But, like, seriously, if you tell yourself, like, oh, I'll pack my lunch in the morning, you probably won't. Just do it the night before. Like, set aside time for yourself to make this meal, and then put it in the fridge, and don't think about it until tomorrow. Like, don't worry about it. Another thing is classes. So, as you're getting into your major, you really should not take, like, all classes in your major. I decided to take a whole bunch of French classes last semester and literally hated my life. Pitt doesn't have good teachers. Like, I'm gonna be straight up, it's a research institution and none of the teachers know how to teach. Like, that's what we have to deal with here. And the French classes that I was in were so bad. Like, the teacher was not engaging, the students in the class sucked at speaking French, which is pretty common. Almost every language class I've ever taken, like, no one was good at it. But that's really difficult for me in a French class where, like, I'm fluent. I could go to the country right now and live there perfectly fine for the next eternity. Like, people have asked me if I was a native speaker, like, several times. But it's just very frustrating for me to be in those classes. So next semester, I think I have to take 2 French classes. I could be wrong on that, but I'm also going to be augmenting it with a bunch of environmental classes, which is my other major. And now I'm kind of out of gen eds, but if you can, take classes in your both of your majors, or take them in your major and your minor, so that you're not just like, all doing one thing, because that can be very, like, frustrating and, like, limiting. I mean, you might like it, but I don't think it's necessarily, like, a good way to do school. Like, personally, I really like having, like, a well-rounded, well-balanced schedule, because I just sort of always have. Another thing is getting your work done. So if you live off campus, it can be very difficult to get your work done because it's a schlep to and from the library or to and from wherever you're studying. So what I recommend is making sure you have enough food to stay on campus for as long as possible, because that's going to be the main reason you're going to want to leave, is either to eat food or to change into something more comfortable. So if you have a place on campus where you can kind of stash some comfy clothes, do that. And if you have, like, that place where you can stash food as well, or, you know, like I said before, make sure you have enough food, pack your lunch the day before, buy food later on campus, or whatever you can sort of work out for yourself to make sure that you have enough food to stay on campus when you know you have to get everything sort of done. You have to bear down and just do work. Another thing is that, like, you shouldn't worry about looking perfect in the morning. This is something that sort of really helped me out this semester, is that, like, I usually was gonna be getting super sweaty in rehearsal in the evening, so I would wear just, like, comfortable clothes, leggings and a sweatshirt or whatever, and, like, minimal or no makeup, and just, like, leave my house like that, because it did not matter, because I was gonna get gross later, but that also allowed me more time to sort of, like, acclimate in the morning, which is something that I need. I tend to wake up between 9:30 and 10 every single day, because I'm on a pretty consistent sleep schedule, and that helps me a lot emotionally. But I get up around 9:30, 10, and I give myself enough time to sort of, like, figure out where I am, get clothes on my body, eat without rushing, and make sure everything is in my backpack. And that helps me a lot. Now that a lot more of my classes are canceled in the morning, I can sort of get away with having time to actually do my makeup and stuff. But just sort of getting out the door and making sure that I can be on time with my mind working properly, like, that has made a big difference for me, because I used to fall asleep all the time last year in class. Something that I learned this year that I have yet to really figure out for myself is figuring out my social life. I really have not kept in touch with a lot of people that I still care about from my freshman year, because I sort of just got, like, sucked into the theater world. And while some people might like that, that's not necessarily healthy for me. And so my job for next year is to sort of, like, figure out where that balance is, and to sort of regain those friendships that I have not been able to, like, maintain as well as I would have liked. And to also sort of not spend every waking moment in the green room, where, like, I have a space to put my stuff and I can eat there, and a lot of my friends hang out there. I need to take some time away from there. I need to spend a lot more time in the library and in the, like, areas where you can study in the cathedral, and then, you know, when the weather is good, outside. Really just, like, anywhere that is not that room, so that I can get more of my work done during the daytime, as opposed to at night when I'm really just, like, exhausted and want to relax. But I need to sort of figure out how to space myself from the theater department at my school while still maintaining the friendships that exist there, and the friendships that I want to sort of reconnect with that exist outside of the theater department. And I know that that's not necessarily great advice for everyone. I'm, like, a lot of people are not sort of in this, like, very tight group of, like, people that do one activity together and spend all of the rest of their time together, but maybe you are, and I think it's really important to have sort of, like, multiple groups that you can go to, because spending too much time connected to one group can sort of like really almost like mess with the way that you like see everything and see yourself, and you just sort of want to have that like healthy balance, that like ability to sort of like see yourself and your friends for like what it really is and not get sort of wrapped up in, it's difficult to sort of articulate, but what happened to me was that I ended up wrapped in a show and with a group of people that I felt really just like ostracized from and like not comfortable being around, but I felt like I had nowhere to go, and I would come home a lot at night and cry to my roommate Amy and say like, I don't know how I'm gonna get through this is really difficult, I feel worthless. And you don't want to be in an environment where that's happening to you. It's not worth it. It's super unhealthy, and so if that's happening to you, you need to leave and find some balance between the few friendships that you do value in there and then the friendships that you have outside of there, because you can't just get wrapped up in that and like feel so much negativity towards yourself. Like, it happened to me, please don't let it happen to you. And I guess sort of the final thing is that like, if you realize that you're having a problem with your roommates, you gotta leave. I was really close with two of my roommates that live below me. One of them I was super close with my freshman year, but then he sort of did some things that made me feel really uncomfortable around him. And then my roommate who lives even further downstairs, I was very close to at the beginning of this year. And all of a sudden he just sort of snapped and was like, you're a terrible person. I tell you, I promise you, I did literally nothing. And my two other roommates that I'm very close with can vouch for me on that. And it's sort of been like extremely toxic to live in my house. I feel very uncomfortable downstairs, even when I have to just sort of change my laundry, or when I'm hanging out with my other roommate that lives downstairs. I feel very uncomfortable and unsafe, and you should not live in a situation where you feel unsafe. Don't let it get to that point. If you realize that early on, you're in a 12-month lease, find a new place for next year as soon as is possible. My roommates and I didn't sort of realize until a little bit too late, so we were able to find a place, but it was not necessarily easy because a lot of places were already taken. But I guess sort of the big thing that I learned this year is that toxic people don't just exist in only Maryland. They are everywhere, and you can leave them because you do not really owe that much to people that you've only known for 2 years. Only to people that you care a lot about. Those are the only people that you owe anything to, you know? Only to the friendships that you want to maintain. If someone is hurting you or some situation is hurting you, leave. You don't live at home anymore. There's about 1 million people at whatever school you're at. You can sort of get out of that situation. Like, you don't have to be in a situation that's bad for you. That's the big thing that I learned. And figuring out how to feed myself is also something that I have to work on, as well as finding balance in my life. Thanks for watching. This was a much more positive video than the last one that I filmed. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.